We got a super exciting episode. We got our buddy Richie all the way out in Hawaii. Let's go. He even promised me I'm going to come stay with him and everybody at their crib
Oh,
after this. That was part of the deal. So, me and my wife and our son will be coming in, hanging out in Hawaii. What's going on? How's the weather out
woo.
there? How we living?
Nick, it's amazing how positioned the island is to just get that equal level of like weather all the time. It's crazy, dude. Like coming
Oh,
from
yeah.
Illinois in the Midwest, I've seen all the seasons. And then when I came out here when I was 20 years old, I was just like, after a while, it just gets kind of hot. It's like it's nice
Oh,
70,
yeah.
80, 70, 80, 70, 80, but eventually you're like, okay, I wouldn't mind a little bit of fall and winter.
Yeah, right. Switch it up a little bit. But I'm sure
Yeah.
you like it much better out there in comparison to just the Midwest, right? When we were looking at the weather and whatnot. So, what brought you out there? Was that basically, hey, you kind of figured out your career and you were able to open up that door? Was it something that kind of just happened, or how did you end up on the island?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Nick. It was, I would say, a God stream, meaning like I was college football. I played Lake Forest, north of Chicago, freshman
Nice.
year, partied it up, and probably shouldn't have. Probably should have stuck to the grind. And then usually after that, people get into some kind of tradesman work or military, or some kind of job and figure out, okay, what's next? And so for me, I went to the military. I joined the Navy, jumped ship and to Pearl Harbor is where I got my first station. I felt like I won the lottery
Yeah,
when I
right.
got my
Thanks for
order
your service.
from Illinois. Yeah. So yeah, so came out here, did my 4 year term, and then jumped right into construction immediately after is where it birthed. So I just been here for 25 years, Nick, and so I feel like
Dang.
going on 45 now. I've been accustomed to the culture here, the locals here, the work here, and if I were to say anything, man, it's what I'm used to is especially in like going back from Illinois is like there's like a season of indoors and outdoors. We're out here, man. It's work all year round. I couldn't imagine being a kid and dad tells you go mow the lawn. You're like,
Mm,
okay, cool. Summertime, you can get down. Winter, you don't have to worry about it. But
so
out here,
true.
you'll be mowing the lawn all year round.
So true. So you've been out there for 25 years, man. I was actually
Yes,
out there a
sir.
few years ago. All I need is a computer for work, right? As long as I have my computer. So
Wow.
I went out there and I was working from like 4 a.m. to noon. And I was just ripping the moped around and went skydiving and you kind of name it. But man, I absolutely love it out there.
Yeah,
You
it's
really can't
special.
beat it. No.
Yeah, it's special, man. It's special in so many different ways. I think just the culture, the people, the relax aloha, you truly feel it. But just the environment, it's like the one place on earth, if you ever say it was the Garden of Eden, this is it, man. It's like
Hmm.
we're developing on it, and there's a lot of, modern day, buildings and traction and jobs. But when you look at the untouched parts of the islands, it blows my mind. The color, the vibrance,
Oh
the land,
yeah.
the way, the coffee. Oh,
Oh
coffee
yeah.
so good.
Oh yeah. I just like wearing your sandals, man. I wish I could just wear my sandals to go get the mail in the wintertime, man. Like that
Yes,
that's what
sir.
I love. Sandals all day, every day, man. So
We call them slippers.
slip
Slippers over here.
oh yeah.
Slipper. Yep, slippers.
Um so dude, you got quite the story, right? So like you said, I know you're a man of faith. You played some college
Mm,
ball. You served in the Navy. You moved out to Hawaii. I saw in like 2021 you were one of the fastest growing companies in the nation, right? And one of the top 50 construction companies in the US, right? I mean, you got top executives in Hawaii, so you got all these kind of awards. You got to, build one of the homes that Zach LaVine purchased, right? So it seems like you got
yep.
some highlight reels over here. I mean, was it always the highlight reels? Was it some growing in wisdom that was able to kind of unlock those opportunities for you? What's your story?
Man, a lot of hard work, and faith and injected into that for sure. Because in the tradesman world, and you're very familiar with, especially because your podcast with just executives, bosses, and roofers. Man, I got just want to put out much love and respect to roofers, man. Especially like in the hot sun, you guys
Oh
just
my God.
demoing, and And I've been up there and I've had to do those, as growing up in the tradesman world, I was a carpenter, I got up in there and learned a lot with concrete and roofing. And so just want to say there's a lot of respect for the hard work that goes in, waking up at 5, 6 a.m. to get to your job, set up your tools, let the sun
Amen.
beat on you, you sweat, you get cuts, you get tar, you get everything in your mama on you. And you got to go home and, get home maybe what? You got a little bit of traffic depending where you're at in the world, and you got your family, you got to
Hmm.
come
Hmm.
in and decompress and cool down and go shower and clean up and repeat. It's
Never
like
ends.
much respect, man, to the
Hmm.
grind. Sir. So
Absolutely.
to answer your question, man, it's I was just a tradesman following a stream of going through an apprenticeship, carpentry and put in the hard work. I remember the first 5 years, man, head down.
Hmm.
Head down, hustled, and competed against other apprentices to show not that I'm better or anything, but just try to outwork anybody like Kobe Bryant style,
Always.
just thinking in my head, just continue to keep your head, show up every day, be early, leave late, and just put in the grind and the time and really try to learn and be humble. I remember this one uh, foreman I had gave me like the best advice starting out in my tradesman. And what he said was, he was like, "Hey, look around at this job site. You see all these old dummies?" That's how he talked, right? He was like, "All right,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah.
OGs, you see all these guys? They're all worthless." And I was like, "Oh, why?" He's like, "Because all of them just think they know everything." It's like if you can carry with you, the humility to always feel like you can learn and get better, even when you feel like you arrived. He said, you'll go really far in this world. And so I always carried that with me, just not a silence on the job site, but a posture or a position of watching and learning and listening and asking questions and never act like I knew it all until it was a time to lead and I had that responsibility and accountability. Then I would make calls, but I wasn't never had the boss mentality or the Mr. Know-it-all mentality. Just kind of led and walked with the humility to say, "Hey, I can still learn, whether you learn from your mistakes or learn
Hmm.
from, what you do have to offer and value." So that was huge. And then Nick just, 2008 happened, and I was, that's when I was in the industry, and Hawaii really felt it around
Oh,
2009,
I can imagine.
2010, and was laid off for the first time, and I
Hmm.
was 8 years, 7 years in the company, 8 years, and just survival mode. Did what we call side jobs. Not sure what the term is out there. If you go find some work from a buddy, pays cash on a weekend, and just keeps you rocking and rolling. And I was doing that, and just found myself kind of leading these jobs, and getting into some kitchen and baths, and just all of a sudden there was like a stream happening, and I realized the cash was getting a little bit larger than usual, right? They were starting to give me down payments and things like that. So just continued the hustle and said to my wife, I was like, man, I think we need to launch a company. So, just make this legit, see what happens. And so there's a lot of, prayer and thought and really thinking like, is our family going to invest in a season of trying to launch a company? And here we were at as
Hmm.
grassroots, beat up truck, barely paying rent guy, jumped out and started this company and just treated and stewarded everything that we could and learn along the way. Minimal gear, man. Minimal gear,
Hmm.
Nick. What that
Oh
means is
yeah.
like
Well,
a lot
it's
of
one of those.
people.
It's one of those things where it's like those humbling moments where you got nothing and you're just working away. You don't know if it's gonna work out. Like that's where you're in your stripes, right? And that's where you get that humbling, if you will, where it brings you back down to earth. So when you do go big, right, you never forget what it was like.
Yeah, yeah, you nailed it, man. And so when I was in the trade, like in my apprentice days, I had this rule of thumb where I seen a lot of the apprentices, they just overinvest and buy all these tools, and they'd come to the job site and look like they look good. You know what I mean? They had all the
Hmm.
tools, but they didn't know how to use 90% of them because they were still learning. So my rule was buy what I need when I need it. And so I had this like buy one tool a week kind of process happening. And so I grew into the tools and using them, and I use that same like mythology, if that's the way to say it, in running and starting a business. I was like, look, I don't know how to do this honestly, but
Hmm.
learn along the way and learn what I need to learn as I need to learn it. And yes, there were a little bit of hurdles and things that if I knew the information, but I all I could do is with the resources I had and what I knew I needed to learn and just kept going, man.
Hmm.
We're in the day of AI and information where we have Shark Tank like advice in our pocket now, right? We could just
Oh
chat
yeah.
GPT anything. And so what's not there are the doers, just taking the information and actually go freaking do it.
Hmm.
Like
A
just
hundred
go out.
percent.
Yeah. And so, that's really what it was, man. I was just doing, but I was trying to do everything legit and right and trying to fix, what there was, a need on our island. So I think when you get into construction or business, you got to look for a need, look for your market. And if it's there, then go. And so what we saw here was a lot of contractors taking advantage of homeowners. They were stealing down payments. They were
Really?
producing bad quality. They were coming in low, change order city. It was a bad
On the
market
little
back.
island, hey, just because there wasn't enough contractors, or what? So they could just
There's
take
not enough
advantage?
man. Yeah, taking advantage. You find them on
Yeah.
Craigslist. They will lie about their license. And so we started all things new and we heavily pushed like the legit quality, on time, integrity, good product, company, positive vibe, culture,
Yeah.
and so one thing to say it, but we had to live it. We had to establish it. We had to make sure our Yelp reviews, showed it. And so we really pushed for that established trust. And once it was received on a small island, man, it was like everybody and their mama was like, hey, this is the contractor of choice. And so that was one of those things that really catapulted us up into a place of, wow, now the big luxury, homes out here, on the ocean front, the 2 million plus, 6 million plus homes are now reaching out to us. And so it just grew really fast, man. And so it
Mm-hmm.
just, like I said, one tool at a time. Okay, if we're gonna grow, we're gonna scale, we're gonna expand, we're gonna hire more project managers, we're gonna need a new system in place that we can keep track of
Mm-hmm.
all this creatively. We no longer doing finances in-house. We gotta hire out, we gotta hire an estimator. So we just took those steps, not scared, and just kept hiring and learning as we went and just kind of fit into the seat versus like, some people want to just, hey, record a record and hope they hit it big. And that's why you
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of those one hit wonders because they didn't work up there. But those guys that are up there surviving it, the Jay-Z's and all these guys, that have the long tenure of, being an artist is because they worked really hard behind the scenes for years we didn't see and just kind of learned along the way.
Oh, 100%. And Jay-Z, first off, he's got the same birthday as me, so shouts out. He's got a song December 4th. And I do want to go into just kind of like the luxury high-end residential properties that you guys were doing and go into like the leadership side and kind of why that interests you. But no, you're 100% right? There's these one-hit wonders where they want it quick and then they give up, right? And then there's people like me and you, right, where we grind it out for years and years and years, where people are looking at you like you might be a little bit crazy, right?
Yes.
Everybody's, and then all of a sudden those same people are asking for advice years down the road, right? And anything worth it's always gonna be difficult. Otherwise, everybody would do it, right? So, I mean, what about you? What did you kind of learn on your journey? And I kind of want to bring that into, you know, the leadership side. Seems like you're really into leadership, right? And why did that kind
Yeah.
of interest you? And like, what do you look at in terms of what a leader is?
Yeah. Just paying attention to a lot of subcontractors because as a general contractor and getting into building homes on a bigger scale, you end up hiring 30 plus contractors, for one specific job. So from the roofers, the painters, the stucco guy,
Oh yeah.
electrician, plumber. So I'm dealing with multiple owners. And then you have the owners who have leads or superintendents or their foremen who have guys that they hire for the job site. And then those job site guys, some come for 3 weeks and then there's a new guy. And so, there's a lot of turnover there and things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But just being in a position of having those multiple, contractor owners and their foremen on one project, but then times that by like three, four, five, you're just kind of in a place to lead naturally a whole bunch of companies. And what I've learned through the process is a lot of them are amazing at their craft. That's
Mm-hmm.
why they became owners, but they've kind of like neglected the other four parts of a company: the marketing, the administration, the finances, the sales. They kind of get a
The
sense of the
business
sales.
fundamentals, kind of.
Yeah, you nailed it. And so, just being there naturally to coach them and not just kind of step in their space and say, "Hey, you need to do this, man." It was kind of like they look at the project and say, "How did you do this?" And
Mm-hmm.
it, what I appreciated just were those open doors of trust And with that, trust became a responsibility. And I felt like, truly examining. I know every person's different. I don't believe in follow my process to get to the top. I believe that there are fundamentals, but at the same
Everybody does
sense,
it
each
different
person,
though. Like
yeah, every
mm,
person's unique, every situation's unique, each personality is unique. So, what I can say is that, success for me was not all the accolades, the awards, and these things that catapulted us, although those were amazing opportunities and I loved every single one of them. But success for me was number one, was carrying my God with me through it. And what I mean by that is he led me,
mm,
and so like I always was in a place of having to trust, let's just call it a higher power or whatever we want to call it. But in business as entrepreneurs, you have to have a different type of faith.
yeah. Oh,
Like
there's no doubt.
you're
You
all
almost have to
faith
be
is.
stupid in a way, right? It's you almost got to be
Yeah, yeah.
ridiculous faith.
It is. And so as builders, and that's why I'm launching a book it launches in a week. I don't know when this will release, but
So
builder of,
what's the name of the book? I mean, and when can people get it? You said in about a week, and is it
yeah,
on
June,
Amazon or where can they get
yep,
it?
June 24th, Amazon, Apple, I mean any digital Barnes and Noble. I mean, we got physical books you can get on my website richiebreaux.com, but it's called Builder of All Things. And I thought it was
Mhm.
like really like it was interesting to me how I was able to connect like as a builder. It's I'd be almost stupid to ignore if somebody didn't build this earth. Because if I look at a building,
Mhm.
I know somebody architecturally designed it. I know, somebody put together conceptuals. I know crew that put that foundation in and built it. So to look at the earth, to look at our bodies, look how Hawaii is positioned so perfectly on the earth to have this, spin and axis. So builder of all things was like a name of our God that I wanted to basically introduce to the tradesman world to say, hey, this is who we're putting our faith in. And I call him the builder of all things. He's that guy. And so, my success was learning how to tap into him. If he's like the resource of all resources or like the leader of all leaders, and been able to connect and have him with me, it helped me, like we are saying with faith, that we almost be stupid to take those steps over a cliff that some people wouldn't, but it's actually me jumping to another ledge that gets me up higher, right? And so that's the faith I have. And to answer your first question about the leadership part, just having that opportunity to encourage guys to know that there is something behind that door you don't see, but you have to have the faith
Mhm.
to step through it, number one, but you have to step through it with some type of integrity. Some, you can't like, I'm gonna get there by stealing other ideas or stealing people's money and falsifying myself online. Like I don't believe the builder of all things honors that. I believe he honors hard work, trust, and integrity and those kind of things. And that's what I wanted to share to those 30 contractors on that job site. When they ask, how did you do it? I would say, by being honest.
Mhm.
By you go look at behind the scenes, I follow the law, I follow the rules. It sucks, it's hard. I got to pay my taxes, and I feel like it's robbery, but I do it,
Oh,
And so
100%.
hardest hurdles were doing it right. But
Mhm.
the greatest reward comes from it too, because then the the higher level clients who want me to build a $7 million home, there's a diligence process of looking at our back end and making those agreements and contracts. You don't just go knock on the door and get a $7 million
No.
house.
No.
No. And to
And
get those level of
and
jobs, there's a
so
diligence. Yeah.
and sorry to cut you up, but I just want to make sure we definitely want to touch on that, right? I think when I prefer. I've been working with contractors for about 10 years now, and I prefer to work with premium contractors just
Indeed.
because they're going to do better business. It's not a race to the bottom, right? They're going to have
Indeed.
enough profit margin to do a good job, take care of their people, reinvest in their company, all that kind of stuff, right? If there's somebody who maybe doesn't have that self belief, right, where they're seeing these crazy projects, but maybe they're getting in their own head. How do you kind of like position yourself, confidently, but then also at a brand standpoint and an expertise standpoint, where it's like, yeah, I'm the guy for the job. You know that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've had opportunities I had to shut down or, just say no because it was too big.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be honest with your values. So one of my favorite like analogies, I don't know if it's a real story, but I've heard this story told to me many times is there's a car. not working. They take it into the mechanic shop. They're gonna charge like, man, it's like an overhaul. It's like 10K or 15K to fix, and they're like, nah. And then this one guy's like, hey, I can fix it for like, 4 or 5K or whatever. I'm just doing numbers, paraphrasing. And they were like, oh yeah, definitely, you're gonna save me 10K. And he went in there and he just took a hammer and like hit one piece and boom, started right up. They started arguing with the guy like, hey man, how you gonna charge me 5K for this? And they were like, well, I gave him my price, you agreed, and what you're paying me for is my knowledge. What
Hmm.
you're paying me for is my experience. What you're paying me for is my wisdom on where to hit that hammer. That took me years. And so I share that to say that we have to evaluate our value. And so I did that. Like one day I just sat down, what am I worth? Like really, like being honest
Hmm.
with myself to say, okay, I'm worth a million. No, like for real. Like if I was sitting there in an hour and I recognize my worth across the board, like what should I ask for? And then I started recognizing, okay, what am I worth a year? And then looking at the company like that, what is it really worth? So charging certain things, you have to understand your value. Now, don't get greedy and then don't like devalue yourself. So that's the balance you got to find out. Greediness is
Hmm.
when you kind of surplus because you're looking for that one-time opportunity, and devaluing is like you're trying to get a job and getting desperate, and you kind of devalue. So if you could find your value and just live by that, then you're content. You're
Hmm.
happy. That's
Yep.
what it is. It's where's your contentment. And so once I found my contentment, I don't care about the mountaintop high and I don't have to worry about the valleys.
Hmm. I love that. I mean, you nailed it there. 100% agree with that. And I think with good contractors, I think obviously there's people who rip people off, but for the good guys and women out there, they're the ones who aren't, giving themselves enough credit, and that's really what's hurting their business, right? Like I think about,
Um,
I charge decently high prices, but I'll be honest, you know, me thousands of hours I've spent just cramming that in front of a computer screen, all hours of the night, just figuring out these different measurement formulas and these, blah blah blah, these integration, but whatever it might be, right? And so it's like I had a sacrifice to be able to do that, right? It's not like I just knew that, and it's the same thing with you and all your years of experience, right? That hey, you're a man of value from that experience and the time that you put in.
yeah. And I would add to that, to the listeners, to add
Mm-hmm.
value to this would be being able to communicate and articulate your value is very important. So I'm in
Mm-hmm.
business for 12 plus years and I've learned how to articulate my value. So it's very important. You could walk around super valuable, but if nobody knows, you have no value. You have to
100%.
be able to articulate it, whether it's a website. If you're speaking premium, you need to show your website premium. If you're talking premium price and you as a owner, you need to show up in premium. So a good example is I don't show up in a beat up truck if I'm a luxury builder, but I don't show up in a Ferrari either. It doesn't speaks that I'm not stewarding my money. I show up in a Tesla
Mm-hmm.
because it shows that I have a steward vehicle, but it's in a market where I'm very wise and I'm budget, with my money. So there's different ways of articulating your
You got the
value,
Tesla
and
though. You
so
got the Tesla. You got the Elon
I
Musk
do,
Tesla out there, man.
I do,
Let's
I do,
go,
and I think people are already scratching it.
dude. Hey, I still like him. I'm still all about it.
Yeah,
I'm pro Tesla.
well, yeah, it's I got solar at home, and it makes
Oh, you got
sense.
the
So if
solar too.
anybody asks
Nice.
me, yeah, if anybody asks me and I were to spell it out, I'm able to articulate the value, which translates to me as an owner when I'm looking at somebody's home, right? So
Yeah, 100%. So what about these houses? So, because I mean, who was it? It was a famous basketball player.
Zach LaVine,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So you actually were able to redo the house that he purchased, right? Do you want to tell me a little bit about that story?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a Hawaii builder, been here 25 years. We did a client's home here locally. I think we did he bought a land for about 4 mil. He put about 2+ mil, sold it for like 8 or 9, then went to Cali, more of a family thing. And so during COVID, and then just that relationship, he was getting taken advantage of by ironically, some, big baller designer, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know the full story from the beginning, but he basically called me. He's like, "Hey man, it's such a great experience with you. Look, I'm gonna develop this house. We bought this land for 15 mil, but right now I'm in like this guy told me it's gonna be like 3 4 million, and we're already at like 2.5,
Oof.
and they just demoed. Like, I'm
Oof.
getting worried. It's a cost plus. I don't know where we're headed. And I was like, dude, you need to get into a lump sum ASAP. And so
Oh
his
yeah.
lawyer, me, we just went over there, and I got hired immediately as like the construction manager for him, and just kind of worked through it all. We started getting some momentum with them, but I think the tension just was not there. I think they were too busy. They're just big time,
Hmm.
man. They're doing $50 million homes as well. So basically, I ended up getting the job and just had to fly guys over, hire guys locally, and just created like a whole Cali business overnight. And this Newport Beach, I mean, it was literally down the road from Kobe Bryant's house, same neighborhood.
Jeez.
Literally just after he passed too. So it was,
Wow.
same neighborhood. And yeah, he poured. I came up with a hard number. It was like 4.5 million to remodel, full stucco, 3 additions attached to grow the square footage to 12,000 square feet. We touch every inch of the home, man.
Hmm.
Half a million spent on furniture. I mean, it was a great time for a builder. And so when he finished, I think he was 21, 22 mil in, and
Ooh.
selling it to Zach LaVine of the Chicago Bulls at the time. Now he's with Sacramento, but he
That's
was,
cool.
30, 35 million, 34 million. It was the highest sold home in all Orange County in
Wow.
2023.
That's crazy. Well,
Yeah, crazy
such a
experience,
cool
man.
story. I mean, amazing basketball player, such a cool experience. Now, to get there though, we keep coming back to this, right? One thing that you hear, of course, with general contractors, subs, relationships not working out, they're yelling at each other, timelines aren't getting hit, it's going over budget. I feel like you probably had to master that area pretty well, right? Based off of all your experience and where you've been able to do it in your career. What does that look like? How do you learn those things? How do you develop there? And because it's such a big skill to have if you can do it.
Yeah, I think number one, when chaos hits, this is more on I'm a certified wellness coach
Oh,
for the
nice.
Well Club. But when chaos hits, normally our brains will go to flight, or run, or fight or
Fight or
flight is what
flight,
it's called.
yeah.
Yeah, and so to be able to get to what's called retreat, which is another side of your brain where like snipers get into, and why they can operate in such high levels of stress, is you almost got to put your brain in a place of gratitude, which sounds crazy, but it is. It's like, because chaos comes, the stress is there, the budget, you're behind. Trust me, I got all those fun, crazy, hardcore storms that hit jobs, and it's just like, people, calling the police because there's noise and shutting down.
Hmm.
There's just money's ticking because the machine's there. And so you always got to be able to just say, first of all, clear the chaos in the brain and just say thank you for this opportunity, like to the builder of all things, even, or whatever gratitude way of just being
So
grateful
true.
for the opportunity, being alive. Just get there first. Once you do, you kind of clear the noise, right? Now, number two is, what's the truths? What are we really facing versus facing, like, okay, what people are saying or what's really happening? Are we really losing money? Are we really losing schedule? And just kind of focus on where are we really at. And then instead of looking at what you can't change, you have to look at it.
Hmm.
What can I do from here? That's simple, man. Okay, that's all you can do.
It's
So
funny. You think it's so simple, but it's so difficult, though, right? Because everybody just gets so overwhelmed in those situations, right? Rather than bringing it back and slowing it down.
yeah, it's the emotions. We
Yeah,
all have it. The emotions kick in, but I think it's very important, man. I think gratitude is the key component in that.
it
It just
is.
being able to, because what you do is your brain's occupied by chaos and negative thoughts and what ifs, and why didn't I?
100%.
And you can't control that stuff. So to kind of just wash it, kind of like an ocean just washing up on the sand, just say, man, I'm just thankful right now that I'm alive. I'm not at war. I'm at a project. Nobody's hurt. And if they are, it's a totally different chaos. But you just got to be grateful what you have, clear your mind. And now what's my truths and what do I do from here? And that's it.
Hmm.
Set a task. So you got to set tasks. Can't look at issues like negative. You got to look at it as new tasks. That's all it is.
Hmm.
That's a military way of thinking, right? It's just like, okay, I have these 7 new tasks. I got to call this guy and reschedule. Boom. Because if you don't do those, what's going to happen? You're going to create more weight of worry, more
Oh,
stress.
100%. It
So
gets bad. It gets worse
it
real
gets
quick.
worse. It gets worse.
Yeah, I mean that's what leadership's all about too. I think is you think about when shit hits the fan with your team. And you think about the leaders who just say so calm, collected, that their team is just like locked in on them, knowing that they're going to be good to go because they have a leader that they can trust, right? And so it really starts with that for sure. I mean,
Hmm.
if let's say there's a younger leader or maybe someone who's been trying to lead for a while and they haven't been able to figure it out, and they haven't been able to slow everything down, right? It's been making them cause issues, making the wrong decisions, whatever it might be. What advice do you have for that leader in development?
I would say believe in the vision that the builder of all things gave you. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I say that and how it relates to your question is like, you know, a lot of times I see the vision of the project being complete and I believe we will arrive and arrive well. That belief
Mm-hmm.
system is like a stream that already has a destination. So even though there's rocks in the way, I believe kind of like a divergent. If you ever seen that movie, I
Mm-hmm.
believe there's always a way out. You know, I really have that belief system. I just have to find it. And so if you don't believe you're going to arrive at that vision, then you can get scared, worried, fear, not know, unsure. And so it just comes back to this key component of having a belief system that you will arrive at the vision that was given to you. If you're a leader, that means you have a vision that you're taking a team to. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in it, then you're not positioned to lead. You know, you
Yeah.
have to believe in the vision. So I would look at a project and just have a vision of it being complete. The reason Steph Curry, these Kobe's, LeBrons, why they can, you know, get to the rim, they have a vision in their head already how they're going to bake you and shake you, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's already baked into their head the moves they're going to do before they do it, you know, and then they just go give that move and they already know in their head they're going to finish that ball. I believe Steph Curry has a vision of him winning one more title in his head, and he will fulfill it because he believes it. I believe that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, same thing with your job. If you know you're given a roofing job, solar job, and you got four of them, you got to have the vision in your head of it already being complete and arriving there before you kickstart, or you're just
Mm-hmm.
leading. I think it's just a belief system, man.
I completely agree. And so that's one thing that I've always been good at. I've never been the smartest, the fastest, whatever, right? But I if I see a goal and it's enticing to me, like it's already considered done. I remember I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast, Courtney D. Walter, this little skinny girl from out here in Golden, Colorado, and she got first place 240 miles, right? She beat the guy in second place by like 10 hours. Freaking beast, dude. I saw her on there.
Mhm.
And I just started running 1 mile. Then I started running 3 miles. Then I started running, and eventually, it took me a couple of years, but eventually I got, and I ran a 100 mile
See?
race, right? But,
Oh,
and
oh,
one thing I'll say this too is about the experience is what I've realized is you, if you have people around you, right? Because a lot of people will be not buying in, whether it's their own insecurities, they might be taught whatever for whatever reason, right? There's gonna be a lot of lack of support or negativity. But if you have just a few people though who like know who you are and what your commitment's all about, and they kind of hype you up, I feel like that's always made a big difference for me too. Is just having a few strong people in your corner that keep you accountable, but that also kind
so
of
good.
bump you up.
Yeah, so good, Nick. And so, like for me, I have this belief that the builder of all things, gave me my vision, and so therefore, not only am I going to fulfill it, but I feel like a sense of being unstoppable too. You know, as
Hmm.
long as I'm following his lead, I'm not doing anything shady. I believe he'll fulfill it. So even more so, I have this purpose driven kind of like, oh, he gave me that vision, so I'm going to fulfill it. Like it's like my responsibility to steward this company,
Hmm.
to steward the vision. And so that empowers me personally. But for somebody else out there listening, definitely that belief system, having supports behind you to feed it, man, sometimes you can feel like you can conquer the moon, man, when you
You don't
got
want to
those
let them
people.
down either, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It's hard to want to spite people. I've never been a big spite person, but like, if somebody
And
kind of believes in you, you're like, oh, I can't let them down, right? Like,
no,
because that's going to inspire other people. I know that's a big thing that you're into, right? Now, when you're looking, Richie, I know you're Mr. Cool. It seems like you're cool, calm, collected when it hits the fan and everything like that, right? But what about when those times where it was, a long period of time, right? Where it felt like the darker times were never going to end and you can never see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? How do you get through those times, Because I know there's a bunch of people out there that are in that situation right now.
Yeah, it's a hard world, man. And see, a lot of those success stories were, 2 or 3 years ago, and what the market is now, and the interest rates being super high,
Hmm.
and we're like the punch in the stomach is our permitting department is suffering, with just having efficiencies, and so they're taking like 2.5 years, which is just creating this envelope of like a sealed closure on most people, man, and we're feeling it.
Oh
So
yeah.
this past year, honestly, Nick, like it's been that dark tunnel of like
Hmm.
where's the light, and so during those times, man, it's I call it the prison where you just kind of sit, trust, and hope, but it's a storm, man. So storms, what I call storms, I believe there's three categories that I've created of adversity. One is a storm, one's a snake, and one is smoke. And I like the S's, and I think a lot of people can relate those three. So it's just more of a fun way. But they highlight of these three adversities. So I try to categorize what I'm in. The first one, the storm, is something out of your control. That's what it is. That's a storm. It's going to
Hmm.
come. You got to trust your processes, pivot if you don't want to get hit by a branch flying in the wind. And you just got to operate with faith that, the builder of all things allowed it and we're going to survive it. And that's just out of your control. And that's how you respond to it. Snake, on the other hand, is where you have somebody trying to sabotage you, or it could be an employee, could be a client, could be, a vendor, but somebody's just attacking your character. And that's where you got to really establish your truths, operate in gratitude, and try to clear the mind, just make right decisions based on low emotional reactions, right? More just response. And then you have the smoke, which I call the self-inflicted fires, where
Hmm.
you're just making bad choices. And
Ooh,
that's the
I've
reason.
never done that, man. I've never, been my own worst enemy.
Yeah, so those three categories I created. So when I'm looking at a challenge or an adversity, I need to categorize it first. Which one is it? Because how I respond to those three are each different. I can't respond to a storm like I would smoke. Smoke, you
Hmm.
need to humble yourself, be humble, look in the mirror and said, I had misaligned effort. I was throwing all my energy into this thing that I wanted to do, had nothing to do with the company, or like I've had pride, didn't want to listen to somebody giving me correction. So that's smoke, right? But that's not how you respond to a storm. A storm is fate. This one's humble. Snake is the gratitude. So it's I look at the adversity right now. If you are going through something right now, is really you don't have to like bring out accountability and talk to people right away, but go look in the mirror and say, which one is it? Is this something really out of my control? Did I cause this or is somebody after me? Like
Hmm.
and then try to respond accordingly. And in my book, I kind of share more in depth my personal stories and what action items and practical steps to get through that. But
And
that's
share
what I've
share the name and how they can get it one more time, real quick.
Yeah, Builder of All Things is the name of the book. It's going to release June 24th on Amazon, Apple, Barnes and Noble, Kindle, all that kind of stuff. You also can go to my website at richiebraux.com. That's Breaux, .com. But the physical book is also available there.
Right on, man. Congratulations. Make sure you guys are grabbing a copy of that for sure. Now, you know, I can tell obviously you're passionate about making an impact on the trades and the people in it, right?
Yeah,
I can tell you care about leadership, you care about faith. But when you're trying to speak to them, whether it's in the book or if you're consulting with them, whatever it might be, what are like some of the like your favorite areas to discuss and why are they so important and like so impactful?
Yeah, I think my faith is big because at the end of the day, it's your family, your faith. That's what all this is about. And if you could
Hmm.
tie that into your pursuit and purpose, it gives you some significance. Why am I alive? One of the most profound things I ever heard was from a nine-figure millionaire, almost going billionaire. Sold his company, balling, Ferrari. I mean, just had everything you could think of, man. The big boat, all the stuff. And he said, now looking back, what he was looking for and all those things this whole time was free. And it was right in front of his face. And it was significance, fate, purpose. Like, what's the point? And so I'm hearing a lot of that. Will Smith just went on, like, hey, I've hit every plateau there is, but I didn't find what I was looking for. And the whole time what I was looking for was peace. It's
Hmm.
like, and so at the end of the day, these purposes and this passion of driving so we don't get burnt out, because passion will burn you out, man. And
Oh
you'll get to
yeah.
a place of stress. If you don't
Passionate
have a
people burn
purpose,
themselves out.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
do. And it's because they don't understand the significance of what they're doing. I can go build a school for a community of kids that need it to have an education, or I can look at that. That's like a significant reason of why I'm building that. That's awesome, right? Just being able to be a part of that project. It produces a different energy. I'm not getting burnt out. I have a purpose in this. Or I can look at it as a 9 to 5 job. I'm getting paid. I love construction. I'm gonna go build this thing, and I need the money and the profit. And these expectations are attached to it versus significance that can burn you out. So
So
I
true.
think that's where I like to inject the faith into it. And my approach of injecting faith, man, I ain't no Bible thrower or any of those kind of things, but I do have a camera and I have a lens and I take pictures with it. And I want to, if you like the pictures I'm taking, I want to share the lens with you.
Let's do it.
Like
A hundred
how I
percent.
look at it.
100%. No, I can tell, right? You're out there trying to do good. It's one of those things where
Mhm.
you go through it, you get to the top of the mountain, right? You're not always on top of the mountain, right? But now obviously there's a lot of people that help you get where you were, and I think it's just one of those things
Mhm.
where you want to return the favor because I'm sure like you, I've had so many people that were so impactful in terms of me learning and growing and people like you, everybody that I have on the podcast is I get to soak in some knowledge, right, and just get a little bit smarter, and that's the way to do it, man. Now, Richie, man, you're living it up in Hawaii, man. I'm loving it. I appreciate the time. Look at this. The internet is a beautiful thing. Look at this.
Right
I
on.
got a new
It's
buddy.
awesome.
Me and my wife, our kids, our dogs, we're all coming out. So we'll see you in a couple
Let's
days. All
go.
right. Uh,
I love
uh,
it, Nick.
but I'll let you close it out. All right. So hit him one more time with some of the book and some ways to get a hold of you. But then from there, it can be a quote, it could be, a life lesson, it could be a pump up speech, whatever you want to leave him with.
Yeah. The book again can be found at richiebro.com or any Apple, Amazon, or wherever you can find a book. Just search Builder of All Things. I also have a podcast where I'm doing an author's cut of each chapter, where I just me and a guy, Ray, my host, is reading the book and he basically just ask questions. So you get to get the deep dive on it, and stuff. It's a Builder of All Things podcast as well. But if I leave you guys with anything, man, it's that life is short. This world can get stressful, and so I would definitely like look into understanding there's a captain there, somebody you can partner with. That's what I call it in the book, is the business partner you didn't know you had, and he's like the captain of the ship, and we get to be there and steward, all the resources he gives us. But if you can tap into that, man, I don't think anything can stop you, man. And so
Mm.
that would hard to leave with people.
Let's go get it. All right.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? Win the day, win the week, get on that winning streak, change the world, right? Why not? All right, man. Hey, Richie, I appreciate you coming on all the way from Hawaii. Pleasure to hang out and to make sure you guys get a copy of that book. All right.
Yeah. Right on. Thank you so much, Nick. I love this. Thank you so much.
Killed it, man.